You're standing at your kitchen window watching a guy you don't recognize walk slowly down your street, pausing at every mailbox. 12 days since the grid dropped, and the neighborhood is starting to do strange things. Your phone is a brick. The fridge smells like something died in a gym bag. Your neighbor, the one with the flag, the one you were counting on, left 3 days ago with his truck loaded to the roof. You've got a closet full of gear, 2 cases of water, and a rifle you've fired exactly twice. You did everything the videos told you to do. You bought the bag. You watched the hours. You thought you were ready. And yet here you are, already losing. Because almost everything you've been told about SHTF is either half true, sold to you by somebody trying to move product, or a fantasy that dies the second reality sets in. The collapse doesn't look like the movies. It doesn't even look like most prepper channels tell you, and most folks who consider themselves prepared are running on a mental model that was outdated before they ever clicked. Subscribe. All right. Stay with me. We're going to peel this whole thing apart, myth by myth, and by the end of it, you'll understand why the guy with half your gear and twice your sense will walk out of this alive. And stick around, because the biggest lie, the one that kills more preppers than violence ever will, I'm saving for last. Let's go. Myth number 1. The lone wolf fantasy. You've seen it 1,000 times. Bearded guy, cabin in the woods, rifle slung, squirrel on the fire, nobody around for miles. That's the dream they sold you. Here's the truth nobody in that fantasy wants to say out loud. Alone is how you die. Every functioning human community in history, from the Roman legion to your grandma's church potluck, has been built on the same idea. People specialize. People cover each other's blind spots. People sleep while somebody else watches the door. One person cannot pull security, cook, treat wounds, haul water, chop wood, and stay sane. The body gives out in about 72 hours of real stress. The FBI's own data on long-term survival scenarios, from hostage situations to disaster zones, shows that isolated individuals make catastrophic decisions at roughly 3 times the rate of people embedded in a small group. Community isn't a nice-to-have. It's the gear. Myth number 2. The Bugout bag will save you. Look, I love a good pack as much as the next guy. Mine's been rebuilt 4 times. But the industry has convinced you that the bag is the plan. And that's backwards. The bag is for the 12 hours between your home and somewhere better. If you don't have a somewhere better, you're just a hiker with a knife. FEMA's own internal numbers suggest that in roughly 85% of disaster scenarios, people who shelter in place do significantly better than those who move. Roads jam, fuel evaporates, strangers get desperate fast. Your house, boring as it is a fortress compared to a tent off I-80. The bag is plan B, home is plan A. If you flip those, flip them back. Myth number 3. Firepower solves problems. It doesn't. Firepower ends problems, sometimes, but only after they've already started. Every round you fire is a beacon telling every desperate person within a mile exactly where the food is. Violence is a thief with a loud voice. Guns have a role, obviously. Nobody's telling you to throw them in a lake. But if your prep is 90% ammunition and 10% everything else, you've built a machine that's very good at one rare scenario and useless for the 99 common ones. Cholera doesn't care about your optic. A broken tooth doesn't care about your trigger pull. The top 3 killers in every historical collapse, from Sarajevo to Katrina to the Great Depression, were disease, accident, and untreated chronic illness. Not bandits, not roving gangs, infected cuts and diabetes. And this is the part I think about the most. I spent 2 years convinced the rifle was the cornerstone. Then I watched my wife get a tooth abscess on a camping trip and realized I had 12,000 rounds in the basement and not a single tube of clove oil. That night changed the whole shape of my prep. Myth number 4. The collapse happens overnight. You're waiting for the flash, the EMP. The day the dollar dies, the single event. Listen close, because this is the one they either don't understand or won't say. Collapses are almost never a cliff. They're a staircase. Rome didn't fall in a weekend, it sagged for 2 centuries. Venezuela didn't wake up in ruin, it slid there one blackout, one empty shelf, one missing medication at a time. The Soviet Union's collapse took years of empty stores before the flag finally came down. You're probably inside a slow collapse right now and calling it inflation. The grocery bill that climbed 40% in 3 years. The pharmacies running low on basic antibiotics. The police response time that went from 8 minutes to 40. SHTF isn't the wolf at the door. It's the door itself rotting, one hinge at a time, while you argue about paint colors. Quick pause. If you're still with me, do me one favor. Tap that like button. Not for me, for the algorithm. So the next guy who's been sold a fantasy by a gear company gets this video in his feed before it's too late for him. Think of it as a small act of community, which, as we just established, is the whole game. Myth number 5. Stockpile beats skill. Every single time I hear somebody brag about a 2-year food supply, I ask one question. Can you cook it without the grid? And about half the time, the answer is a long pause. A pantry is a clock. The second the lid comes off, it starts ticking down. A skill is a well. It refills. Knowing how to make bread from wheat berries, knowing how to preserve meat with nothing but salt and thyme, knowing how to sharpen a blade on a river rock, those things don't expire. The mistake preppers make is thinking of prep as a shopping list. Instead of an education. Gear runs out. Knowledge compounds. In the Balkan War, the people who survived weren't the ones with the biggest bunkers. They were the ones who could fix a radio, stitch a wound, and negotiate with a neighbor without starting a blood feud. Myth number 6. The countryside is safer. This is the myth I want to dismantle carefully because it's the sacred cow. Everybody's rural bug-out dream runs on one assumption, that the locals will accept you. They won't. Tight, rural communities have been built over generations. You, with your out-of-state plates and your freshly bought 10 acres, are a stranger. In a real long-haul scenario, strangers eat last or don't eat at all. On top of that, isolated homesteads are, by definition, far from help. A sprained ankle in the suburbs is an inconvenience. A sprained ankle on a mountain in February alone is an obituary. Rural can work, but only if you actually live there now, know your neighbors by their kids' names, and have been part of the fabric long before the lights go out. Myth number 7, and this one hurts. You are not going to rise to the occasion. You are going to fall to the level of your training. Every single soldier, EMT, and firefighter will tell you the same thing. When the adrenaline hits, your fine motor skills evaporate. Your vision tunnels, and your IQ drops about 30 points. That gear you've never actually used? You're not going to magically use it right on day 1. That tourniquet still in the plastic wrapper? That water filter you've never assembled? Useless. The movies lie to you. Regular people, on their worst day, do not transform into action heroes. They freeze. They panic. They do the thing they practiced, or they do nothing. Here's where it all connects. Remember when I said community was the gear? This is why. Because a group compensates for panic. One person freezes, another moves. One person bleeds, another bandages. The lone wolf myth isn't just lonely, it's mathematically fragile. One bad moment and the whole system collapses with the man. Quick question for you, and I actually want an answer in the comments. What's the one thing you thought you had dialed in, and then realized, maybe during a storm, a blackout, a job loss, something, that your plan was thinner than you thought? I read these. Your story might be exactly what somebody scrolling through here at 2 in the morning needs to hear. Myth number 8. The biggest one. The one that kills more preppers than any bandit, any storm, any plague. The myth of the finish line. You think there's a day when you'll be ready. A final item on the list. A last can of beans, a last magazine, a last skill badge, and then you can relax. There is no finish line. Preparedness isn't a destination, it's a posture. The moment you think you're done, you stop adapting, and the world keeps moving. The guy who survives isn't the one with the most stuff. He's the one who's still paying attention. Here's why all of this works, the quiet science under the noise. Every historical collapse, every grid-down case study, every refugee memoir points to the same three variables. Social capital, adaptability, health, not ammo count, not pantry depth, not acreage. The people who walked out of the Balkans, out of Argentina's 2001 collapse, out of every long emergency on record, had stronger neighbors, flexible minds, and bodies that worked. Everything else was decoration. So come back to that kitchen window. The guy's still walking down your street. Only now you're not alone. At the glass. Your neighbor 2 doors down, the one you actually bothered to know this year, is on his porch. You've got a radio that works, a filter you've used 50 times, a skill that makes you valuable instead of a target, and a mind that's been rehearsing this for years without ever expecting a medal for it. The stranger keeps walking because your street, your block, your little pocket of the world looks exactly like the kind of place that isn't worth the trouble. That's the win. Not heroics, not glory. Just the quiet math of being a little harder to break than the house next door. If this rearranged something in your head, hit subscribe. There's a lot more like this coming. And some of what we're covering next might be the piece that turns your plan from a pile of gear into something that actually holds. Don't miss it. You might need it sooner than you think.